In this lesson, we will explore the relationship of the trig functions of positive angles to negative angles. Let's look at these relationships. First, what I have here is an angle theta in standard position, and what I have down here is negative theta in standard position. Initial side, terminal side, and of course this is the initial side and terminal side of theta. Well, what we know about these relationships is if this is a point on the terminal side of theta, then on negative theta, we will have the point x negative y. So using these coordinates on the terminal sides, we can find the trig functions. So the sine of theta is equal to y divided by r, where we know that r is that distance, and the sine of negative theta is negative y divided by r, where in this case, of course, that is our r distance. Well, what's the relationship here? This is the opposite of that, isn't it? So we can say that the sine of negative theta equals the opposite of the sine of theta. And that's one of our negative identities. Now, let's look at the cosine. Well, we've learned that the cosine of theta equals x divided by r. Now let's look at the cosine of negative theta. It would equal to its x-coordinate, which is x, divided by r. Well, in this case, these two quantities are equal, aren't they? They are the same. So we can say that the cosine of negative theta equals the cosine of theta, because those two quantities are the same. The last relationship that we'll look at is the tangent. So let's find the tangent of theta. It's this y-coordinate over x, isn't it? And what about the tangent of negative theta? Well, it's equal to negative y over x. Once again, what's the relationship? Are those the same? Well, no, those are opposites. So we can say that the tangent of negative theta equals the opposite of the tangent of theta. Now I have summarized this, and you will want to be sure that you learn this. The sine of negative theta equals minus the sine of theta. The cosine of negative theta just equals the cosine of theta, and the tangent of negative theta equals minus the tangent of theta. Sometimes we use these generically, and then sometimes we use them specifically. For instance, in my work, if I have the sine of negative theta, I can just replace it with minus the sine of theta. If I have the cosine of negative theta, I can replace it with the cosine of theta. And if I have the tangent of negative theta, I can replace that with minus the tangent of theta. More specifically, if I have the sine of negative 45 degrees by the negative angle identity, I know that that is equal to minus the sine of 45 degrees, which would be minus, and then the sine of 45 degrees is the square root of 2 over 2. If I have the cosine of negative pi over 6 by the negative angle identity, I know that the cosine of negative pi over 6 equals the cosine of pi over 6, and of course the cosine of pi over 6 is the square root of 3 over 2. And on this one, I really should have it written like this: tangent of negative pi over 3. If I have the tangent of negative pi over 3, I know that that is equal to minus the tangent of pi over 3, which would be minus, and then of course the tangent of pi over 3 is the square root of 3. And that's usually how I use the negative angle identities. That completes this lesson. If you're finished with the tape, please rewind it before you return it. Thank you.